So it seems 2022 is not all bad news and delays for CD Projekt Red. We finally have an official release planned for the next gen version of The Witcher 3. And yeah, it looks like Q4 2022 will be very busy. Also some big news about the upcoming Cyberpunk show set to get a big reveal next month, and a pretty awesome look at how Cyberpunk 2077 could have looked like if development went a little bit different, so let's begin. But Witcher 3 has been through a pretty wild few months between its next-gen version, which was announced and planned to release at the end of last year. It then got delayed alongside the Cyberpunk next-gen upgrade to the second quarter of 2022. Well, the next-gen upgrade for Cyberpunk did eventually come a few months ago, but now we have official confirmation that the upgrade for Witcher 3 is planned to release in Q4 of 2022. So some pretty great news to mark the Witcher 3 7th anniversary, and it also means that there's still something left for us to enjoy in 2022. This means that the game should drop anywhere between the start of October until the end of December, but I have a pretty good idea when CD Projekt Red might be aiming with this, especially since Starfield has been postponed from its November 11 window to early 2023. I think that could be a good month to have the launch of the next gen version of Witcher 3 and pretty much go uncontested. October could still be a pretty good month, though it's kind of filled with two games already between Forspoken and Gotham Knights. Still likely not as big as the Witcher franchise, but it could still pose a competition, and holiday 2022 might still be too busy with the launch of Hogwarts Legacy that I kind of want to see having its own window and stay on its own. I think that that's going to be the next major release of this year following Elden Ring. It's good to know that CD Projekt Red had confirmed as early as April of 2022 that their in-house development team would conduct the remaining work on the next-gen version of The Witcher 3, and at that time they were still evaluating the scope of work needed to be done. This is, by the way, after previously having that managed by a third-party studio named Saber Interactive, basically the same studio that also handled the Witcher 3 Switch port for CD Projekt Red, and that went pretty well. So I'm kinda keeping hopes high that yeah, it's going to work as flawless as possible when the next gen upgrade for Witcher 3 drops in Q4. Also, in terms of extra content past the graphics and obviously the performance improvements, I'd assume we do know that CD Projekt Red plans on at least a few free DLCs alongside the Witcher 3 next gen launch, likely including armor sets and some other possible items inspired by the Witcher Netflix series that we had up until this year. And who knows, maybe they'll add a bit more than just adding ray tracing and unlocked FPS. I would also like to see a few retouches or maybe even improvements to the UI menus, and maybe even some movement or combat tweaks that many mods for Witcher 3 out there have already tried solving for years. But Cyberpunk has been through a pretty good period itself following its 1.5 and next gen update, with a daily peak on Steam of almost 60k. Well, that went down a little bit with the content drought in the past few months. Obviously, it's also a long shot from the almost 1 million it had on launch day, but it's not uncommon for single-player games, even extremely successful ones, to eventually cool off even a few short months after their initial release date. Most recently, Elden Ring comes to mind, an absolutely stellar game that I've enjoyed from all points of view, still has less than 10% and dropping from its daily peak just 3 months ago. But it's highly likely that some of the Cyberpunk 2077 player base will rebound, and next month might be it, with the big reveal of Cyberpunk Edgerunners, the anime show collab between CD Projekt Red and Studio Trigger. There's also a new website for the show, by the way, teasing a big announcement starting on June 8th during the Netflix Geek Week 2022, so really excited for that. We actually already have a few teaser shots of the anime and the 10 episodes that are planned. I'm really in love with the overall art style and generally vibrant theme that they chose to go with. I think it's very fitting and tastefully chosen. It totally captures the atmosphere and the vibrant aesthetic of the cyberpunk genre, and we also have a first look at some of the characters, including what's likely the main character as well, I would assume, in one of these shots. The story follows the adventure of a street kid becoming an edge runner, a sort of mercenary outlaw trying to survive of a dystopian city of the future obsessed with technology and body modifications. So yeah, I'm totally hooked and totally expecting, or at least hoping, for some kind of in-game event to overlap with the launch of the anime in the upcoming months. I think it would be a totally missed opportunity on CD Projekt Red to not have at least some kind of free DLC, or maybe a bunch of items, maybe even a mission. I would definitely like that as a nod to the show, especially since the studio has kind of been involved so heavily with the Cyberpunk anime before the game even launched. And who knows, maybe people who see the show will then jump and give a try to Cyberpunk 2077, kinda like how Witcher 3 had a huge explosion in its player base last year following the launch of the Netflix series. I would definitely like to see that for Cyberpunk as well. But with CDPR's jump from their proprietary Red engine to the Unreal Engine 5 for their upcoming Witcher title, yeah, one fan decided to reimagine Cyberpunk 2077 if it was developed in Unreal Engine 5 entirely. So a big shout out to them. There's a quick link you can follow for all of these videos and the cool footage. They also have some on YouTube and a few on ArtStation that captures really well some of the better known spots in Night City, with the assets available of course, except it's all rendered in Unreal Engine 5, including one of these areas that seem to be outside Lizzie's bar. Definitely seems to be pretty close to the real thing, or well, the one in the full game. Also a few street views from what appears to be the Watson district and the city center, and I'm also a huge fan of many of these flying vehicles in many of these shots. Kinda makes me miss them a little bit in the full game. I kind of wish that CD Projekt Red added these as usable vehicles, not just reserved for the NPCs and the trauma teams that, yes, they do kinda roam the cities and it does give that cinematic effect, but I kinda wished it was more than just a backdrop to look at. It really highlights what Cyberpunk 2077 could have looked like if it were developed in Unreal Engine 5. I think it's totally worth giving it a thought, knowing CDPR's multi-year partnership with Epic Games has already begun with the development of the next installment of the Witcher game series in Unreal Engine 5. So yeah, if you were wondering if this leaves any room for Cyberpunk 2077 and its future expansion, no, that's not going to be the case. Obviously, that's still going to be developed on their proprietary Red engine, but who knows, maybe a sequel for Cyberpunk 2077 could totally be fully developed in Unreal Engine 5 if we get a chance to even see that by the time it happens. But yeah, this is pretty much it with the news. Totally let me know down below in the comments if you're planning to watch Cyberpunk Edgerunners or are you planning to ignore it. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.